A 25-meter satellite antenna destroyed. Satellite links severed near Moscow, gas processing units knocked offline. In 1 week, Ukraine has struck satellites, refineries, ports, and ferries, the entire system Russia relies on to fight and to fund the fight. Hundreds of kilometers from the front line, Ukraine is reaching the heart of Russia's infrastructure. This is no longer about the front line, it's about everything behind it. Ukraine has confirmed the destruction of a key antenna at a Russian space communications centre near Moscow and the shutdown of a major gas processing plant in Russia's Orenburg region in the latest wave of long-range strikes targeting infrastructure far behind the front lines. Ukraine's General Staff confirmed on June 25th that a strike carried out on the night of June 22nd had caused critical damage to the Vladimir Space Communications Centre near the town of Krasnodar in Russia's Vladimir region.
The main antenna of the complex, a 25-meter parabolic antenna, was critically damaged, along with the antenna on the roof of the main hardware and software complex. The central section of the building housing satellite modems, multiplexers, and the central switching node was also damaged. Production at the Orenburg Gas Processing Plant has been suspended after damage to 4 gas processing units.
The facility's main 25-meter parabolic antenna was destroyed. A second antenna on the roof of the main hardware and software complex was also damaged. The central section of the building itself, which houses satellite modem halls, multiplexers, and the central switching node connecting fiber optic communication lines to other space communications centers across Russia, sustained significant damage. A separate technical building containing transmission and reception complexes and cooling systems for the main antenna's electronics was critically hit. In a separate strike on June 24th, Ukraine confirmed it had shut down production at the Orenburg Gas Processing Plant after hitting 4 of its gas processing units. Operations at the facility have been completely suspended. The strikes form part of what Ukraine describes as a systematic long-range campaign against Russian military and economic infrastructure. In the days surrounding these attacks, Ukrainian forces also struck the Dubna Space Communications Centre in the Moscow region, where heavy smoke was observed after explosions, causing significant damage to the facility's main production building and its 32-meter Mark IV antenna. Separately, strikes hit the Kavkaz port in Russia's Krasnodar region and 2 vehicle ferries supporting Russian logistics in southern Ukraine.
Ukraine's defense forces will continue to systematically carry out measures aimed at stopping the Russian Federation's armed aggression against Ukraine.
President Volodymyr Zelensky separately confirmed successful strikes on an oil depot in Russia's Krasnodar region and on 2 oil refineries in Ufa, the Bashneft, Ufa-Neftekhim, and Bashneft Novoil facilities, as part of the same campaign. Taken together, the strikes span satellite communications, energy production, fuel infrastructure, and maritime logistics, targeting the systems Russia uses to sustain both its military operations and its broader war economy simultaneously. Ukraine has claimed one of its deepest long-range strikes of the war, targeting a major Russian gas processing hub and the country's only helium production plant more than 1,200 kilometers from the front line. According to a June 24th statement by the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, Ukrainian forces struck the Orenburg Gas Processing Plant and the Orenburg Helium Plant overnight, with fires reported at both facilities. In a statement cited by UATV English, the General Staff said,
Units of the Defense Forces of Ukraine in the Orenburg region struck the Orenburg Gas Processing Plant and the only helium plant in Russia. The distance is more than 1,200 kilometers from the line of combat contact.
The Orenburg industrial complex is strategically significant. The gas processing facility produces extracts of helium used in liquid fuel rocket engines and guidance systems, along with ethane used in aerospace-grade materials and rocket propellant components. Commissioned in 1974, the Orenburg Gas Processing Plant is one of the world's largest gas chemical facilities. As explosions and fires were reported, Russian authorities imposed temporary flight restrictions at airports in Orenburg, Orsk, and Yasnoye. Orenburg Governor Yevgeny Solntsev blamed Ukraine for the attack, saying on Telegram,
A massive drone attack on our region was organized by the criminal regime of the armed forces of Ukraine. Several drones were shot down over an industrial facility, and I urge residents to remain calm. Sharing of drone-related photos and videos is prohibited.
Ukraine says the operation extended beyond Orenburg. The General Staff reported strikes on a Russian FPV drone depot near Alexeyevka in the Belgorod region and multiple UAV command posts.
Also, the control points of the occupants' UAVs in the areas of Chasiv Yar in the Donetsk region, Basan and Rozov in the Zaporizhzhia region, Tyotkino and Popovo-Lezachi in the Kursk region of Russia, as well as Zhuravlyovka in the Belgorod region of Russia, were hit.
Kyiv also said additional analysis confirmed the destruction of 2 Russian unmanned surface vessels in the northwestern Black Sea and reported damage to buildings at the Vladimir Space Communications Centre, a facility supporting Russian satellite and deep space communications. Moscow has come under what Russian authorities describe as the largest Ukrainian attack since the start of the full-scale war, with close to 200 drones striking targets around the Russian capital and sending thick columns of smoke high into the sky. According to Moscow Region Governor Andrei Vorobyov, 17 people were wounded during the attacks. Russia's defense ministry said that almost 1,000 drones and 4 Ukrainian cruise missiles were intercepted and destroyed across the country within 24 hours. However, several targets were still hit. One of the most significant strikes occurred at the Moscow oil refinery in the capital's Kapotnya district. The facility, located just 15 kilometers from the Kremlin and responsible for supplying up to 40% of Moscow's fuel market, was struck for the second time in a week. Moscow Mayor Sergei Sobyanin said air defense forces were continuing to repel what he described as a massive attack, but confirmed that several drones managed to reach the refinery. The impact of the strike was dramatic. A fuel storage tank exploded, sending its roof soaring into the air. A massive fire erupted at the facility, with black smoke coloring the Moscow skyline. The Kapotnya refinery was not the only site affected. A nearby shopping centre also caught fire, reportedly after drone debris fell onto the building. Several residential high-rise blocks in the area were evacuated as a precaution. The attacks caused widespread disruption across the capital. Moscow's 4 airports were temporarily shut down, while more than 500 flights were cancelled or delayed. Although Russian authorities have banned the publication of images showing the aftermath of drone strikes, numerous videos circulating on social media show drones flying across the sky in broad daylight and explosions over industrial districts on the outskirts of Moscow. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky confirmed that Ukrainian forces had once again targeted the Moscow region using what he called long-range sanctions, a phrase frequently used by Kyiv to describe long-distance strikes inside Russia.
Last night, our long-range sanctions once again reached the Moscow region. For the second time this week, the Moscow oil refinery was hit. Targets were also struck in the Rostov region and in temporarily occupied territories of Ukraine. This is a fully justified response to Russian attacks on our cities and communities, and another important result of our warriors' work against facilities that sustain Russia's war machine.
The Ukrainian president also said that heavy drone attacks on Russia were retaliation for a strike that damaged a historic monastery in Kyiv earlier this week, and that Moscow will burn if attacks continue. In a voice message sent to reporters on a WhatsApp group, Zelensky said,
"We don't want this war. We never did, and everyone knows it, and our partners know it. But if Ukraine burns, your Moscow will burn. Everyone needs to put pressure on Putin. Ukrainians, absolutely all the Europeans, Americans, and Russians. It's time to sober up and put pressure on their leader."
While Moscow dealt with explosions and fires, Kyiv was once again forced into shelters under missile warnings as Russia continued its own offensive operations. Ukrainian authorities said Russia launched more than 200 drones and multiple ballistic missiles against Ukraine overnight. Russian President Vladimir Putin, who is currently hosting Southeast Asian leaders at a summit in Kazan, has not publicly commented on the attacks. Ukrainian Foreign Minister Andriy Sybiha addressed Russians directly on social media, responding to questions reportedly circulating among residents of Moscow.
One of the most popular questions asked by Muscovites this morning is, "What is going on?" I can answer. Your country started a war of aggression against ours. For years, it has been killing our people. Now that you know what's going on, ask Putin when he is planning to end it.
Meanwhile, responding to the attacks, Kremlin aide Yuri Ushakov said,
It is fair to say that Ukraine's latest attacks do not bring personal contacts between the head of the Kyiv regime and our president any closer. Does not bring them closer.
As both sides continue exchanging drones, missiles, and accusations, the war is reaching deeper into territory once considered far from the battlefield. The front lines may still lie hundreds of kilometers away, but the war is increasingly being felt in the skies above both Moscow and Kyiv.